National Association of Nigerian Students, Nans, kicks against closure of varsities over election. Wow. So, National Association of Nigerian Students have risen to demonstrate and protest against the federal government decision to close down universities because of election. Okay. Remember that about 2 days ago, the federal government, through Federal Ministry of Education, instructed National University Commission (NUC) and all universities to shut down between February 22 to March 14, 2023 to accommodate the two elections that have been planned for February 25 and March 11 this year. Okay, so with that, the National University Commission has then instructed all the universities to close down come February 2022 and then to resume around March 15 after the state elections in March 11 would have been concluded. So now with all of this, there have been mixed reactions from the public. Some people are saying, well, it is good to keep the students safe, let them go home and wait after election, they can come back. Some are saying all over the world, you don't close schools because of election. Students will go out of the campus, go vote, and then come back. All right, everyone is not expected to be involved in the election violence. So even closing down the schools does not prevent the students from participating in electoral violence or any electoral fraud if they have to. They can still be in the school and do it. They can still be at home and be involved. So it doesn't make any difference. So why are we closing the schools? Now, Nigerian students have come out to protest it. Schools should not be closed down. Wow. So let's see what they have to say more. The National Association of Nigerian Students, Nans, yesterday kicked against the closure of public universities by the National Universities Commission ahead of the coming election. In a statement made available to journalists in Ibadan, Oyo State Capital, by the National Public Relations Officer of Nans, Iyisa Temitope, the decision of the federal government through the NUC to close out ivory towers for weeks, all in the name of election, is an unfortunate one and does not deserve any applause from right-thinking Nigerians. The statement reads, as an association, we have at different fora maintained that for no reason should our higher institutions of learning be hastily closed in response to certain actions, and this played out during the heat of COVID-19 crisis. We condemned the closure of schools. For no reason whatsoever should academic activities be put on hold, not even at this time that universities are making up for the 9 months ASU strike. Some of our institutions have tens of polling units on their campuses. So how then would students in these campuses be able to cast their votes when schools are shut down? Okay. This is disenfranchisement in itself, and we condemn such. I can see that. So because if students have registered for voting in their campuses, that is the area they will go and vote. Now, if you close schools, you are not asking them to go home. That's a dimension to this. You are not asking them to go home. So how are they going to vote? Some people came from various states, across states, to their schools. So how, if they go back home, how will they vote? That's disenfranchisement loading. That makes sense again. That is another part of this issue. Wow. So how then will students in these campuses be able to cast their vote when schools are shut down? That is disenfranchisement in itself, and we condemn such. We make our position known that we will never, for any reason, support such irrational action by the federal government. Rather, they should allow schools to declare a few days as a break for their students who would be traveling to their various homes to participate in the election. We call on the federal government to stop paying lip service to education. The government must massively invest in education and must not for any reason put academic activities on hold. If the government had invested in the educational sector, there wouldn't be any need to halt academic activities because of elections. Rather, schools would go virtual and the learning process would continue. Wow. So this publicity secretary of Nans spoke from Ibadan, okay, in Oyo State, and has decried the decision of federal government through National University Commission to shut down schools. It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. They call it disenfranchisement in its own, and that means people will not be able to vote. That is not fair. That is not right. Okay, he's saying, why closing schools? Okay, these students have polling units in their schools. So if you close down schools and you ask them to go, how will they be able to vote? Because even if you close down schools and they don't go, they are still inside the campus, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any difference. So why halting studies because of this? Okay, even though there are some students that actually registered in their own communities, and probably will need a few days to go and vote and come back, allow universities to use their discretion to give certain number of days that they can go vote and come back, okay, without impact on studies, because the schools have been down for almost 9 months and they are trying to recover their losses throughout the ASU strike period. Okay, but unfortunately, we have a government that does not listen to anybody. Now they have spoken, they have even forgotten that they have spoken. They will just go and sleep. They don't even care about anything. But again, this student union officer is telling the government that what decision they have made is irrational and should not be accepted. And the problem is because the government failed to invest in education, but because if they invested in education, they will not be making rational decisions that will affect their investment, that will affect the learning process in all the universities. Okay, so the government need to give preference, need to give attention to academic system, to the educational system in Nigeria, and not taking actions and decisions that will further crash the value of education in Nigeria. That is what the Nans is saying through their publicity secretary. Okay, this is quite unfortunate that students are being disenfranchised, somehow from voting, because they might be asked to leave their own polling units. Okay, so this guy is National Public Relations Officer, not publicity secretary. So the decision of the government to close down schools is not going down well with Nigerian students, and they've started protesting it already. Okay, I just hope, but I just ask again, how will federal government and NUC make a decision to close down schools without inviting Nans in that meeting? Because Nans remains stakeholder in Nigerian university education system and also in Nigerian educational system. So if Nans is regarded as a stakeholder, how come they had that meeting and make that decision without inviting Nans into it to make their contributions, to air their views on it? Okay, they just unilaterally made a decision and then instructed, and then instructed NUC to talk to all the universities to close down. I don't understand. How was the meeting held? Who and who were in that meeting? How did they come about this decision? Because if Nans had been part of that, probably that decision would have been averted, or Nans being in agreement will not be protesting that decision now. So it means that they did not carry Nans along, and then how many other stakeholders were also not carried along? What else don't we know? Okay, so that is the big question now that they really need to answer. But unfortunately, Nans had decried that decision and are now protesting against it. So federal government need to retrace their steps and right their wrongs and make sure that all stakeholders' interests are represented without issues. So thank you for listening, and let's have your comment.